It was my granddaughter Lily's 7th birthday party, and the yard was filled with laughter. She ran up to me, holding a drawing, her eyes shining. And in that moment, for a terrifying 3 seconds, her name just vanished from my mind. I just stood there, smiling a hollow smile, my mind frantically searching for the name of this little girl I adored more than anything. It was the most profound moment of shame I've ever felt. This was my catalyst event, the moment I knew something was deeply wrong. I started to think of it as the fog. It wasn't just simple forgetfulness. It felt like an entity, an antagonist that was slowly erasing the pages of my life story. It had been creeping in for months, but now it had shown its face in the cruelest way possible. Looking back, the signs were all there, like little paper cuts to my confidence. I'd walk into the kitchen with purpose, only to stand there completely baffled. I'd be mid-story with friends, and suddenly, the point would just evaporate. The real cost wasn't just the memory lapses, it was the fear. I started turning down invitations to dinner parties, terrified I wouldn't remember someone's name. I, who had always been a storyteller, grew quiet, afraid of the humiliation of a story trailing off into nothing. My wife, Helen, noticed. She'd see me staring into space and gently ask if I was okay. We never named the fear, but it sat between us at the dinner table, a silent guest representing what we both dreaded. I'd hear people say it all the time, "Oh, that's just part of getting older." It felt like a life sentence. Was this it? Was the rest of my life just a slow, managed decline into forgetfulness? I finally went to my doctor, hoping for a solution, a magic pill. He was kind, but his words offered little comfort, suggesting it was likely age-related cognitive change. I left his office feeling defeated, as if my future had been written and the ending was bleak. The world started to feel muted. The joy I used to find in simple things was dulled by the constant, low-grade anxiety of the fog. It felt like I was becoming a ghost in my own life, observing but not truly participating. At night, the darkest fear would surface, the fear of becoming a burden to Helen and my kids. The thought of them having to care for me, of me not even knowing who they were, it was a soul-crushing weight. I felt like I was just waiting for the end. I used to be so sharp, the guy everyone came to for advice. I ran my own hardware store for 40 years, keeping thousands of items straight in my head. Now, I looked in the mirror and saw a stranger with haunted eyes, a man I didn't recognize or respect. Even my beloved books betrayed me. I'd read a chapter of a dense history book, my favorite subject, and have no recollection of it the next day. The frustration was so immense that I just stopped reading. The fog was stealing everything I loved. This was my rock bottom. I had accepted the story society tells us about aging. I was 68, and this was just how it was meant to be. I was on a one-way track, and it was all downhill from here. Then, a lifeline. I got a call from my old college roommate, Frank, who I hadn't spoken to in a year. He was 74, and he sounded incredibly vibrant, telling me all about the trip to Tuscany he was planning and how his Italian lessons were going. Learning Italian? At his age? The idea seemed absurd to the man I had become, but a tiny part of the old me, the curious me, woke up. How was Frank defying the fog? For the first time in months, I felt a spark not of fear, but of possibility. That night, I couldn't sleep. I crept downstairs and typed how to improve memory after 60 into the computer. I was flooded with articles and studies, and one word kept jumping out at me, a word that would change everything. The word was neuroplasticity. The science was clear. The brain, even the 68-year-old brain, isn't set in stone. It can rewire itself, grow new pathways, and adapt, but only if you give it the right challenges and the right fuel. I finally understood. My brain wasn't dying, it was just out of shape. I had been doing the same comfortable things for years, and like an unused muscle, it had grown weak. It didn't need more of the same, It needed new, complex challenges. The research pointed to a handful of core pillars. It wasn't one magic bullet, it was a combination of things. Aerobic exercise to boost a protein called BDNF, a brain-healthy diet, learning something genuinely new, and meaningful social connection. This was my true aha moment. The fog wasn't my destiny, it was a condition. It was the result of a lifestyle that had become too comfortable, too routine. I wasn't powerless. I could choose to fight. The next day, feeling a mix of hope and foolishness, I took my first step. I downloaded a language app on my phone. I chose Spanish, a language I'd always wished I'd learned. My first lesson was just 5 minutes long. It was humbling and incredibly difficult. The words felt foreign and sticky in my mind. My brain, so used to its old, comfortable pathways, resisted. I wanted to close the app and pretend it never happened, but then I pictured Lily's face. The research said aerobic exercise was crucial, so I dug out my old running shoes. I started with a 20-minute walk, but a real walk, fast enough that I was a little out of breath. It felt good to feel my body working again. A week into my new routine, Helen asked me to pick up a few things from the store. Normally, I'd panic and write it down immediately. This time, I made a mental picture of the 7 items, and when I got to the store, I remembered every single one. It felt like winning the lottery. That night, I finally told Helen everything. I told her about forgetting Lily's name, about the fog, and about my plan to fight back. The relief in her eyes was palpable. She didn't see a broken man, she saw a fighter, and she became my biggest ally. I knew this couldn't be a temporary fix. I needed a system, a daily protocol to rebuild my brain. I wrote it down, a commitment to myself, a battle plan to push back the fog for good. My day now started with movement. No excuses. That 30-minute walk became non-negotiable. I was kickstarting my circulation, feeding my brain precious oxygen, and getting my body and mind firing on all cylinders. Helen and I overhauled our kitchen based on the Mind diet. We started eating blueberries with breakfast, having salads for lunch, and snacking on walnuts. We were literally feeding my brain the nutrients it needed to repair itself. Every afternoon, from 2 to 3 p.m., was my novelty hour. I spent 30 minutes on my Spanish app, and then, on a whim, I bought a cheap ukulele and started watching beginner tutorials. It was hard, and I was terrible at first, but I could feel my brain struggling and working in a way it hadn't in decades. It wasn't random. The research showed that learning an instrument and a new language are 2 of the most powerful ways to build cognitive reserve. They create dense new neural pathways, like building a whole new road system in your brain to bypass any old, blocked-off streets. Finally, I had to reconnect. I pushed past my fear and joined a history book club at the local library. It forced me not only to read again, but to discuss, debate, and articulate my thoughts. It was a workout for the social and verbal parts of my brain. It was not a smooth, easy journey. There were days my brain felt tired, and the lure of the afternoon nap and mindless television was immense. My fingers ached from pressing the ukulele strings, but every time I wanted to quit, I remembered the fog. About 2 months in, we were watching an old movie, and I couldn't place an actor. The old panic started to rise, but I stopped, took a breath, and let my mind work. And then it just popped in, that's Gene Hackman. It was a small thing, but it felt like a miracle. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, the fog began to recede. Colors seemed more vivid. I found myself jumping into conversations again, not holding back. The constant, low-level hum of anxiety in my head started to quiet down. A new kind of confidence began to grow. It wasn't about knowing all the answers. It was the confidence that came from knowing I could learn, that my brain was still a powerful and capable tool if I just took care of it. We had friends over, and someone asked me a question about the old hardware store. Without thinking, I told a long, winding story from 30 years ago, complete with names, dates, and funny details. I finished, and the table was laughing, and Helen was looking at me, her eyes shining with pride. Something shifted. My brain health protocol stopped feeling like a chore I had to do to keep the fog at bay. It became the best part of my day. The challenge itself became the reward. Now, a year later, my life is completely different. The fog is gone. It's not that I never forget anything, nobody does, but the fear is gone. My mind feels agile, like it's ready for whatever I throw at it. I wake up in the morning now with a sense of purpose. I'm not just waiting for the day to end. I'm an active participant, excited for my walk, for my lessons, for the conversations I'll have. A few weeks ago, we went out for dinner, and I ordered for both of us in my clumsy, beginner's Spanish. The waiter smiled and replied, and we had a simple two-sentence exchange. I felt like I had climbed Mount Everest. This journey gave me so much more than my memory back. It gave me a sense of vitality I thought was exclusively for the young. It's an energy, a spark, a feeling that my story isn't over. In many ways, it's just beginning a new chapter. And then came the moment that brought everything full circle. Lily was over, and she saw me playing a simple song on the ukulele. Instead of me feeling a blank, I was the one with something to share. I showed her how to play a C chord, her little fingers on the fretboard next to mine. In that moment, the contrast was staggering. From the man who couldn't remember her name to the grandfather teaching her something new. That old, painful memory was replaced by this new one, a memory of connection, learning, and joy. I no longer think of my brain as a muscle, but as a garden. You can't just let it go, you have to actively tend to it. You have to weed out the easy, passive habits and constantly plant new seeds of knowledge and experience. Having a sharp mind in your later years is the greatest gift you can give yourself and your family. It allows you to be truly present, to share your wisdom, and to continue learning from the world. It's the difference between fading away and shining brightly. If you are feeling the first whispers of the fog, please hear me. Your story is not over. You are not a victim of your own biology. You have the power to pick up the tools and start tending to your own beautiful garden. Don't be intimidated. Just start with one small thing, one walk, one 5-minute lesson, one healthy choice. That one small act is a declaration of hope, a vote for a brighter future. Lean into the things that feel a little difficult. That feeling of awkwardness when you try something new, that's the feeling of new neural pathways being forged. It's the feeling of your brain coming back to life. I am here to tell you that this stage of life doesn't have to be about managing decline. It can be a time of incredible growth and vitality. It can be the chapter where you finally have the time to learn the things you've always wanted to learn. The fog once threatened to erase me, but instead, the fight against it made me more myself than ever. My life is rich and full of learning, laughter, and love. My journey proves that it's never too late to reclaim your mind and life with vibrant purpose.